AUM is bringing you live coverage of the civil defense. Oh, excuse me, gentlemen. As you can see here, there are many, many people here that have gathered to find out what is the latest of what has now been dubbed Typhoon Mangkhut. All day we've been covering this, the progression of the storm, the possible trajectory. It's been reported now that as of 7 a.m., the 7 a.m. update, and then again on 1, it veered slightly north, just a little bit north, so it went a little bit more towards Rota. Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed that. It went more towards Rota. That does not mean Guam is in the clear right now, and that's what we're going to bring you live right now. And I'm going to go check on my back.
Same ground rules as yesterday. No questions until after Chip is completed his heavy weather brief. Okay.
The mayor's console here. Is Joanne here? Okay, everyone, we'll get started here. You've probably seen the press release. The governor and admiral are going to put the island and military bases in condition of readiness 2 at 7 p.m. tonight. Shelters are prepped and ready to open at 6 p.m. tonight. Okay, the storm is moving fast, so our timelines are getting compressed. But we'll adjust as required. I appreciate everyone's support and cooperation the past couple of days in getting to this point. I wish the mayor's council of Guam was here. We anticipate going to Core 1, and this is just a planning factor. We anticipate going to Core 1 at 4 a.m. tomorrow morning. Okay, it ought to Okay, I'm going to introduce the Lieutenant Governor, Ray Tanola. He would like to say a few words.
Yeah, thank you. Everybody, thanks for the work you're going to be doing over the next number of hours. We're going to be ready for the storm. We've been preparing in advance. The governor's already signed 2 executive orders. We really appreciate you coming out, National Guard, military, and of course our local counterparts. Spoke to Miguel Bordalio earlier regarding the GWA and making sure that the pumps are pretty much up to par. GPA as well, and Melinda Moffness with regards to the backup generators. Everything looks like we're ready. You get the weather briefing from Chip, and of course Landis for doing a good job in his absence, but really got a good team here. If there's any questions, we already met with the mayors and pretty much handled many of their issues. We'll be prepared to pick up the residents from the various areas, and of course you all play a pivotal role in this. But I want to thank you, especially those who've been here for many, many hours already working on this team. So thank you very much. Chip?
Yes, sir. I see some FEMA reps out there. Maybe, do they want to come in?
Okay, here comes the money. Don't laugh, it's true. So you document everything.
Well, good afternoon. It's great to be back on Guam. I was down in Chuk for a week or so, and vacation, of course, not just business. But here we have Mangkhut, and you can see that it looks a lot different than it did yesterday. The shear is off of the storm, and has become a typhoon now. And it's moving at a pretty good clip, 23 miles per hour toward the Mariana Islands. If we look at the color infrared, we're keying on this bright red area here, and just to the west of that is the center of the storm. And it's likely going to go through an intensification process tonight. Storms this fast don't usually rapidly intensify, but I got to tell you, we're watching an area, this is the water vapor data, and the water vapor shows us how complex the atmosphere is. We have an upper low up here, and it's in a good position to interact with this storm and cause it to rapidly intensify. However, like I said, storms moving this fast don't usually rapidly intensify. We had one in 1991, you probably remember Uri, and it was moving about 20 miles an hour as well. And it didn't rapidly intensify, but it just continuously ramped up until it reached 150 miles per hour. Produced the biggest waves we've ever really seen in a long time on this island. But this won't be like that, but somewhere it's going to move through the Mariana Islands. So one of our colleagues, Roger, has taken the scatterometer data. Scatterometer is from a satellite about 450 miles high, and it looks down on the Earth, and it can look at the backscatter off the ocean surface and estimate the wind speed and direction very accurately. So here we have the 39 mile per hour winds, the damaging winds, and here we have the destructive winds, and some typhoon force winds are embedded in that area. So here's the current track this afternoon at 2 p.m. And you notice it still has that little dip in it, and I'll explain that little dip in just a minute. But at 1 p.m., the center was located at 15.140. Okay, thanks. Pretty much what we had. So it's located here, and we'll talk a little bit about the distances in just a second. This is the uncertainty, and since it's kind of skinny here, we have a fairly good confidence that the track's going to remain somewhere in there. It's based on climatological data, historical data, 5-year errors from the Joint Typhoon Warning Center. It really has nothing to do with the current storm. But 70% of the time, the track will remain in that area, but that means 30% of the time it can deviate. You probably wonder what this hatched area is. We take the uncertainty here and we just add the damaging wind radius. So that's the possible swath of damaging winds. So, one of the reasons we're taking this storm so seriously is because we have a lot of computer models out there, and these are all the U.S. models, and you can see how tightly packed they are. Now these computer models, they have a little different physics. They have a little different data assimilation. That means that they bring in data differently and different types of data. But the fact is they're all in a very, very tight area, pretty much boresighting the Rota Channel and Rota. So, and we also can look at international. And here we have Korean, Japanese, Chinese, Australian, European, British models from all over the world. And again, they're pretty tightly packed as well. So that's why we have to respect this storm track, even though it seems to be moving more on a westward track. I have a theory about that, and that is that the that the storm itself has modified the steering. And so some of the influence of the storm, that's what's bringing it west. But in general, the steering is just east to west. Storms, because of the spin of the earth, generally want to move from the southeast to the northwest. So anyway, at 1 p.m. it was located at 15.1, 154 east. However, we got a 4 p.m. update, and that's 15.2, 152 8 east. That's 550 miles east-northeast of Guam, and 75 mile per hour intensity, so it's still just barely a typhoon. It's moving west at 23 miles per hour. We don't really expect to see it move much faster than 23 miles per hour. 23 miles per hour is kind of a magic number, though. It's how fast the waves are going to be moving ahead of the storm. And so with the waves and the storm moving at the same speed, they're kind of going to get here at the same time. You know, you're not going to see the storm waves get here 2 days ahead of time or 1 day ahead of time. So they'll be a little out in front of the storm, but not significantly. Current movement, 275 degrees at 23 miles per hour. It's forecast to continue this westward movement, and they're still putting that little dip in there. So that's why we have to really respect that little dip. And current intensity, 75 miles per hour, gust to 90. Typhoon force winds extend downward to 30 miles, and damaging winds upward to 130 miles in the north. I don't know, 75 miles to the south. That's pretty tight. Maybe 100 miles, and I'll explain a little bit of the significance of this in just a minute. The close point of approach currently forecast is late Monday night. Now keep in mind, that's when the storm's going to get the closest to us. Doesn't mean when the worst conditions are going to occur. So frequently after the storm passes, we see the worst conditions. So the onset of damaging winds, 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. That's why we moved up the warning to 2 p.m. this afternoon. 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. tomorrow afternoon, onset time of sustained destructive winds, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. And hurricane force winds or typhoon force winds around 9 p.m. Right now they're just barely forecast to be over the northern part of the island. But you know, when these storms are moving, y'all know what a flywheel is on a car, right? It's got a weight on one side, so it goes around and it creates torque. Well, we have the same thing with thunderstorms around the center of a typhoon. And as this moving through the atmosphere, it creates torque. And that causes it to wobble as it's going through. And they can wobble about 20 miles. And the current track, a 20-mile wobble, is going to bring the center a lot closer to us. So it's just something to think about, to be aware of. Maximum sustained winds predicted Category 1, but a shift back to the south could bring Category 2. Category 1, we have 5 categories. That's the weakest category of the typhoon category. So we expect these things to end, the typhoon force winds to end tomorrow night and late, and then the destructive winds 1 to 2 a.m. and then the damaging winds probably before daybreak, but close to sunrise Tuesday morning. So this is a graphic, and that's how we determine those onset of winds and how long they're going to last. This is from a program called HURRIVAC. We thank our friends from FEMA for funding this program. FEMA and the Corps of Engineers funded this for us. And it gives us the change in wind direction and the change in wind speed hourly. So we can use this to prepare our aviation forecast for the aircraft coming in. But the nice thing, it tells us when the onset of winds are going to occur, the damaging winds and the destructive winds and the typhoon force winds. And then after the typhoon force winds pass, we're going to go back through the destructive winds and then finally the damaging winds. And you can see how many hours out they are, and you can see the closest approach. So we get a lot of great data off of this. And we can determine this for Rota, Tinian, Saipan, any point on the map with respect to the storm track, we can we can get information like this out. So this is a great tool for us. Precipitation forecast. The heaviest rainfall accumulations will occur near the center. And so based on the current forecast track, we've reduced the amount for Guam 4 to 6 inches. And because of the speed of movement, the rainfall is going to be really elongated over near where the eye of the storm is, or the eye wall of the storm. So for Rota right now, we've got the most rainfall. Any deviation from that's going to cause maybe an increase for Saipan and Tinian, or a decrease for us. So there's no flood advisories in effect at this time. We may put out a flood watch later tonight, but because of the low amount of rain that we expect, we may not put out any flash flood warnings. We may put out some urban small stream flood advisories, but we'll keep an eye on the radar, and the radar will let us know. And if we see a lot of showers starting to develop, especially down toward Maritzo and on the backside of those mountains, we'll go ahead and issue the flash flood warnings. Waves that are running around 20 feet in the open ocean, they'll build up as the intensity of the storm strengthens. This is the kind of surf you can expect depending on the category of winds that arrive. So something we're expecting like 15 to 20 feet, and that might create 3 to 5 feet of inundation. So we're not really expecting Typhoon Category 2 damage right now, but this is what we should be planning for, something like this. 96 to 110 mile per hour winds. Heavy damage to wooden structures, especially termite-infested structures. Considerable destruction to structures made of light material. So that again hits those most vulnerable people. And strong rip currents, 4 to 6 feet of coastal flooding here, so maybe 2 to 4 feet with the Category 1. Sometimes we have to add the monsoon effects with that. We don't have much of a monsoon developing with this storm, so that's good news for us. A lot of damage to vegetation. As far as the infrastructure is concerned, we probably should be in pretty good shape, but we could see some rotten power poles, if there's some out there, be blown down, some secondary power lines, and of course, the limbs that fall on the power lines, that's probably going to be the biggest concern. If we get up stronger than this, then we have to be stronger than Category 2. We have to be concerned with damage to the port, damage to the airport, things like that. So right now, this is what we're pretty much say we need to plan for, and probably we'll see Category 1. So it's a lot like Dolphin was, okay? Now, because the rain field is so elongated, if we don't get much rain in the south, then it's not going to bring those strong winds down to the surface, and so I won't see frequent strong winds without those rain showers. So if the rain showers do develop, though, they will bring those strong winds down to the surface. I'm saying strong. I'm saying those Category 1, those gusts to 90 miles an hour or so. Okay, and then this is for worse conditions. This is what they would expect up in Rota. So I won't really go through that with you all, but and then Category 4 is even worse. So that's probably what they're going to plan for up in Rota. Anyway, what we want to tell people is they should get into a concrete structure if possible, and especially if they're in substandard structures or in old houses with wooden roofs, there's a good chance they may lose those roofs. So plan for typhoon warning now in effect for Guam. Intermediate advisory will be issued at 5 p.m. So that's been issued, and that's this 15.2, 152.8, and 550 miles northeast of Guam. So flash flood watch likely late tonight or early Monday, and flash flood warnings, well, we'll just have to play that by ear, and those usually last just a few hours, but the watch will stay up for 12 or 18 hours. So. Next scheduled public advisory will be issued at 8 p.m. this evening. And I kind of expect to see it inching a little bit farther to the north, but we'll see how that pans out. Worst conditions, Monday night into early Tuesday morning. Keep alert for changes such as the track shifting more to the north or south. More rapid intensification, erratic movement not likely, things moving so fast. So Guam and Rota, at least northern Guam, both and Rota have to kind of prepare for a direct hit. Tinian and Saipan, though, should prepare for a close hit as well, especially if this thing continues north, goes a little bit farther north. We may even have to put the northern islands into a tropical storm watch or warning before it's over. That's all I have. Does anybody have any questions? Wait. Questions. Questions, wait. Where's yours?
Right here.
Okay, so no questions right
Yeah,
now.
we need to get the media out first.
I'll be glad to go do like an interview with the media out there. That'd be fine.
Yes. Can you take this?
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry.
I was gonna take it to Arizona. You want that?
All right, everybody, so that is the official word once again. Chip Guard, our very good friend from the National Weather Service, he's actually right behind us right there. We're going to go to a quiet and secured area, get some more insight from him on the expected conditions over maybe the next day or so. As we have heard, and I'm trying to walk backwards and not walk into a wall like at the beginning. As we have heard over the last day or so, some brisk pace by the former tropical depression, then tropical storm, and now a typhoon. Chip was saying it's moving at about 23 miles per hour. I've even seen some data from earlier in the day that said at one point it got up to 30. That is actually a good thing for us, but by no means are we out of the woods just yet, as it were. So here is Chip. Chip, very good to see you again.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, and as you opened up your presentation, well done, by the way. As you began your presentation, everything. Sorry to cut your vacation short. Sorry about that. You had to come right back.